So this morning we are going to try an experiment, something a little different for our community, or at least in the 4.5 years I've been here, this has not occurred. Today we're going to have a little bit of a conversation about our parish church, and we will explore some questions regarding our faith and principles on which our faith is built. It is important that we understand our faith as we then go out the doors and relate to the general community around us. I chose this Sunday to sort of pop this up because Jesus declares, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." I believe, as I mentioned last week, that these ego-eimi statements of Jesus provide a clue to what the church should look like. I see these three categories, way, truth, and life, as characteristics of Jesus and as aspirational statements for the church, the body of Christ in the world today. Jesus speaks about being the way. This concept is so important to the early church that it became one of the first names for the church. We are members and disciples and followers of the way. Jesus and his teachings represent the way because in life we are all on a journey and using the ideas that we learn and signposts and directives as we navigate through our own experiences. In today's society, the concept of truth often seems to be absent. Even established facts can be disputed based on personal beliefs or opinions. When we speak of the truth in relation to our faith, we're not really referring to certainty. As one priest I know has said, the opposite of faith is not doubt, it's certainty. As the author of the letter of Hebrews states, faith is the assurance of things hoped for and the conviction of things not seen. The truth we derive from our faith aligns with the teachings and our understanding of them. The logical outcomes of our faith principles shape our understanding of truth. And here we are on the 5th Sunday of Easter. You wonder why I keep saying Happy Easter. Celebrating the resurrection of Jesus, which serves as our motivation to live out our life of faith. Our relationship with the resurrected Jesus transforms our perspective and guides us fully embracing the love that he taught. This is truly the essence of life. When we think of the resurrection, we often think and associate it with the life after death. However, we are taught that putting our faith into action leads us to find life in the present. God has granted us life so that we can serve and love everyone we encounter. So now comes time for responses. I would love to hear some comments on this idea about the body of Christ. We take on the characteristics of Christ as aspirational statements. Let's consider this, I am the way, the truth, and the life, and hear how it is aspirational for the Church of the Ascension here, now, right here in Parkesburg and the surrounding communities. So I'm going to ask some prompting questions. I would encourage you to share your thoughts. I know this may be coming as a surprise to some of you, but your insights and your contributions to our community are vital for shaping our future. Not trying to put anybody on the spot. Rather, I hope that you will speak from your heart and share your perspectives. We have limited time, so please try to keep your responses concise and focused. You might want to share a short story that reflects from your experiences or desires. let us try to be respectful to one another and honor the collective wisdom of our community. Let's have a dialogue. And for those who are listening to this conversation online, if you would like to join us, you can post in the chat or your thoughts or your comments. And then for all of us, if you'd like to speak to me more about this privately, please contact me. We could set up a time. Also, please try to continue the conversation at coffee hour. I did see food coming in, so there is coffee hour today. So the only other thing is for you all in the room, please wait for the microphone, because otherwise the people online can't hear you. So the first question is personal. What makes you feel the most alive? What experiences have you had where you felt the most alive? And if you're ready to say something, just put your hand up or something so Danae knows who's going to go next.
I feel most alive when I'm with other people that share similar views, similar loves, similar hopes.
Thank you. I feel most alive when I am around other people, and also being in the fetal program at North Penn High School, because that allowed me to be my my typical whole self, and also being at Stepping Stones. Thank you. How many questions do you have? 2.
I feel like I might be off topic, but I feel most alive when something is a struggle and we come out the other side. I feel like that feeling of achieving when it seemed hard.
Tyler and I were away last weekend, and it was in a really rural area. So we were surrounded by mountains and green pastures and sheep that had babies that were springing all over the place, and birds were chirping, and the air itself smelled sweet. And when I woke up that morning and went outside, I just felt alive with the nature.
Yeah, I worked for Acme for 30 years. Out of those 30 years, I was 28 years an hour from home. My husband never allowed me to stay home because of bad weather, because he told me I wasn't hired just for good weather, even though he didn't have to go to work because he worked for the state. But he was he was in the Army, and he spent 4.5 years in Vietnam. And when they came home, they were not allowed to talk about what went on over there. The only thing he ever told me is they had a Vietnamese girl working for them who was the girlfriend of a Viet Cong general. And they came to work one day and found her head. And that's the only thing he ever said about there, but he became a really bad alcoholic and killed him in the end. But yeah, I was always an hour from home, and I remember coming up 30 bypass, right by the hospital, all of a sudden the roads turned to ice. A car was passing me, and he came at me 4 times and ended up in the center of the road. And I thought, wow, I always felt like I had an angel on my shoulder.
Sure.
I think I have felt most alive in the times when I was out in the wilderness, the canoe wilderness, with wilderness canoe camping. It was just a tent and a canoe, and my wife and my dog, canoeing on the lakes and hiking on the trails, especially in the Boundary Waters canoe area in Minnesota and also in the Adirondacks of New York. You really feel alive when you're out in nature, in spite of the mosquitoes and other things.
Okay. Things I heard were our relationships that we have with one another and how we find God. Mary Chris would say this is classic Steve Lindsay. That it's within our relationships that we really do find God there. And then the struggles, your automobile situation on Route 30. Oh my, what a scary thought of seeing a car coming to you that way, and the struggles that you talked about as well. I mean, it is a time when we turn to God, and sometimes we get the answers we want, sometimes we get answers that we don't want. But the good news is that God is always listening to us in those situations. And then the one that came loud and clear at 8 o'clock as well was the times in the wilderness, the being out in nature, and the like you were saying, the coming of the spring and seeing the lambs come, and I'm sure the Boundary Waters and you and Judy canoeing across the Boundary Waters. It just these are the places where we see God the most and we feel the most alive and connected. So my next question for you just is how can the Church of the Ascension, or how does Church of the Ascension support you in these things that are happening around you? How do you see the church, what we do here on Sunday, maybe what we do in study groups, or other things that you do for the church over at the Point, feeding the kids? How do we support you and help you identify these kind of situations where you feel most alive, or provide them for you?
Honestly, probably coffee hour is like an important one for me. And I know my kids are always like, oh, you're a super talky mom, like get out of here. But that's a valuable thing for me, is just being with people and having deep or trivial conversations, just connecting.
For me, it would be serving the people at the Parkesburg Point. This allows us to serve a nice meal to the kids, and to also have fellowship with one another and a nice dinner together as volunteers in the community.
Thank you, Lauren.
This little church is the only place I get all week to share parts of my life, my thoughts, my spirituality, my hopes. It's with Julianne, the coffee hour is important. You know, it's a ministry that is important to me. It's a nice place to unload and share and pick up and feel more equipped.
I feel like when we have study groups outside of church, it's kind of a nice way to slow down in the middle of the week when things are going fast and just talk with people and have light conversations, have deep conversations, whatever the night brings. Also, there's always good food, so that's important too. Um, but there's just something about getting together and sharing a meal with someone, a group of people, and having that time to fellowship.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you all for sharing and taking this time together to discuss. And I know on the one hand, the Episcopal service is intended to be interactive. That's why we have a lot of call and responses, like the psalm and other places in the service, and singing our hymns. So it's not just a passively sitting and watching a performance. We need to think about these things. So as I was saying, when we go out those doors and we interact with people that aren't in this room and don't experience the things that you talked about, we have something to say to them about, hey, why don't you come and see? Come and see what goes on and see how you could be supported. It's really a good thing. And then as we share our stories, and I was watching the faces on the people listening and heads nodding and things like that, our community life, as we tell our stories. So, I mean, it might be the 300th time you've heard Walt tell you about the Boundary Waters, but there'll be something new in that story. But telling our stories to each other actually helps all of us and helps our faith gather. As Robert was saying, it's like it might be the only place in life at all that you're able to do that. I hope that we continue this conversation and these kind of questions around what happens. I hope not to take the good sharing of your lives away from coffee hour, but maybe some